Welcome to the 4x4 Canada podcast. I'm your guest today, the Lost Spike. And with me today are your hosts, Trisha and Wes. Take it away.
Yeah.
We're so excited to have you on, Zach. We are so excited to have another East Coaster. And
I'm excited.
It's been a while.
On.
Yeah, it's been a while since we had an East Coaster, and I apologize to all you guys over there because I know there's a lot of you guys running in the overland world and in the 4x4 world over there, and you got some beautiful area over there. So definitely
it's
looking
incredible
forward.
Country.
Oh, gorgeous, right? Trisha, have you been to the East Coast yet?
I haven't. The furthest I've traveled is Quebec.
You're missing out.
I know, right? I'm totally missing out. And I'm closer to East Coast than the West Coast. So
it's absolutely gorgeous. I know we got a lot to talk about with you, but before we hop into it, I do want to throw a shout out to our guest from last week, Ryan from Adventure Dog Overland. We ended up talking a lot about his dog. That's the focus of his channel, but him and his dog travel all over Alberta and BC and adventure in their little F-150. And it was a really neat conversation. We talked everything from dogs to being in the military for 14 years to YouTube and overlanding and Instagram. And it was a really neat conversation. So again, that was last week with Ryan from Adventure Dog Overland. Next week, we've got Josh and Vanessa from Destined for Wild. And they recently traveled in their 80 Series Land Cruiser all the way down from Vernon, British Columbia, all the way down to the tip of Argentina. And then had the vehicle shipped back into Texas, I believe, and then drove it back up. But that's going to be a really interesting conversation because we talked a lot about not only the trip, they had the motor blow up on them, they had the transmission go on them, they had a couple of repairs, but there's hiking on old volcanoes. They were doing all kinds of the stuff you dream about. So we also get into the fact that you're in a vehicle with your spouse for 24/7 for 9 months and how to deal with that. But as they mentioned, it's all about the people that they meet. And we've got some really great stories with them. Check that out next week. And while you're at it, hit the subscribe button, whatever your app uses, and so you don't miss any more episodes. Zach, let's hop in with you. And like we mentioned, super excited to have you on board. We have another East Coaster in the house. And like we mentioned, I can't wait to get back out there again.
We'd love to have you out here. That's for sure, Wes.
Yeah, we'll have to hop on a plane, and I'm sure I can hit up a ride with you and you or Ryan and do some exploring.
We'd find a seat. We would find a seat for you somewhere.
So, Zach, let's throw out the socials real quick. You are on Instagram at the Lost Spike, correct?
Correct. And I'm also on Facebook too. I cross post between the two pages, but mostly I focus on the Instagram. My Facebook page, I don't give it as much love. I really should start to give it some more love.
We mentioned that you're out of the East Coast. Whereabouts are you from?
So I'm actually from St. John, New Brunswick. It's known locally here as the Fog City because we get incredible amounts of fog here. But it's also known to the rest of Canada as the city that everyone mistakes for St. John's, Newfoundland.
So we were talking about your socials, The Lost Spike. You have a unique Instagram account that I love following and love just all your drone photography and just the pictures. Is that full time for you?
It's funny because most people ask that. I am not a professional photographer at all. It's pretty well a hobby for me. Wow. And I'm very much a person that I like to pick something up and I like to just go for it and try it. And that was one of those things. I just started with a phone and just started growing from there. When I maxed out the potential of my phone, I bought a DSLR camera. And then from there, I've grown to the drone. I'm on my second drone now. My first one's in a tree in Ontario. And instantly, to start doing some more reels, I bought an Insta360.
Nice.
So I'm trying to broaden and expand different ways I do photography and videography.
Wow. I wouldn't even think that at all because I'm like, oh, his Instagram is amazing. You like a lot of dark, I guess, foggy touches because you are in the fog, the fog city.
Yes.
Yeah. I love it.
We get a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I very much to set a
really good photographers is anybody can just click a picture, but the ability to tell a story within that photo is key. So I think a lot of your stuff, anybody looks at your Instagram, like we mentioned, the Lost Spike, that it should be the and then underscore lost and then underscore spike. But they look at it and it just makes you want to go to the East Coast.
So great out here.
I always say that BC is the most beautiful province in the country, but I think you can find beauty in pretty much everywhere, including southern Saskatchewan. And yeah, definitely the East Coast, we have a really great because we have both coasts and both coasts are absolutely beautiful.
And I certainly agree.
So when you're growing up, did you do a lot of camping and exploring, or is this something that sort of came later on in the years?
Well, yes, actually growing up, I did quite a lot of camping and exploring. So I was very fortunate. My parents wanted me and my brother to see the country as we grew up. So when I was 7 years old, we hopped in our 2000s Toyota Tundra and we set off on a 2-week road trip to see the West Coast. We did Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta. We dipped into BC just to say we were there. And then I think when I was about 11 years old, we did the same thing on the East Coast. We did Quebec, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, PEI. And the only one I haven't done yet is Newfoundland. But
so close.
I know. It's that ferry ride.
Yeah. And that is a long ferry ride too, isn't it?
I believe it's about 6 to 8 hours.
Oh, wow. It looked a lot closer on the map.
So you started your foray into the overlanding in a not such a regular overlanding rig. When I first started following you, you had a bit of a different rig.
Yes, I did. A very unique rig. It was a 2019 Hyundai Tucson. And it didn't originally start off as an overland rig. It was never meant to go off-road. I bought it and I was like, I'm going to keep this thing stock. I'm going to be responsible. And that all changed in 2020. When COVID hit, I really got my first taste of camping in a car and I was hooked ever since. And then came the rooftop tent. And then over the few years that I had it, trying to find my notes here. Over the few years, I put in a 2-inch ready lift and upgraded to a 29-inch BFG all-terrain tire. And then upgraded the rooftop tent to a hard shell rooftop tent. And then I started doing a lot of DIY with it because obviously you can't find overland and off-road accessories for a Tucson.
Right.
So I fabricated a custom-built skid plate with a bull bar, 3,500-pound winch, and some swanky Amazon lights. And then built a custom drawer system for the trunk so I could keep all my stuff organized. And then the last thing that happened was I built a custom rear tire swing out using a bike rack and Amazon tire carrier. And it started to become a symbol of run what you bring. That you don't need a fully built 4Runner Tacoma to get out in the woods and enjoy what this province and what this country has to give. That you can do it in a Tucson. And it really reached its peak in 2023 after I replaced the motor. And I was invited on a week-long trip across New Brunswick with the folks from Adventure Trail Gear. And Nick had this great idea that he wanted to do this trail called Cape Spencer here in St. John, New Brunswick. Now, if you're not familiar with Cape Spencer, it is described as a trail that stock Jeeps will rub their bumpers on. And I'm in a Tucson, obviously, with 29-inch tire. And the group I'm with they're Jeep Gladiators on 37s, Tundras on 35s. They all have winches, armor, and then there's little old me in the Tucson. We fought our way through that trail, and it made it. We made it to camp, and we set up, and we celebrated the victory that was getting the Tucson into Cape Spencer. And then the next morning, we woke up to torrential rains, and all the trails were now rivers.
Oh, that's a good wheeling day.
Yes. Oh, we were was soaked. Everything we owned was absolutely soaked by the time we got out of there. And it got so bad that Nick was taking his Gladiator through the puddles just as quick as he could to empty the puddles out to make sure we weren't going to drown the Tucson because they were that deep.
Oh, wow.
But it was incredible. But after that, I discovered that I think the water must have got into my radiator fans and killed my cooling system on it. And I had to cut that trip short. And because of that's where my new ride came along.
Which is?
Yes. I got very lucky and I bought a fully built 2019 Toyota 4Runner TRD Pro. And I had to do nothing to it when I got it. It was perfect.
Awesome. What do you have on it?
So the 4Runner, it's quite well equipped. It's got a Davidson's 3-inch suspension lift on it with a 1-inch body lift as well. It's got a 33-inch Toyo tire on it right now. The previous owner actually had 35s on it, I've been told, but I just can't go that big. If I went that big, I wouldn't be able to go to work. I wouldn't fit in the parking garage. I'm sticking with the 33s. I also have Freedom Off-Road upper control arms on it. It was a recent change I made to it. I have full Coastal Off-Road front bumpers, rear bumpers with dual swings, and their rock sliders. RCA Off-Road skid plates. All this came with it. It was a great deal. Bought, not built.
Sometimes it's nicer to pick up a used vehicle that somebody's already dumped the money into it. Sometimes you wonder if it's been beat or something like that. But
it's very risky, that's for sure. It's very risky buying a used modified off-road vehicle. However, I got quite lucky, and the guy that owned it before me clearly treated this thing like a payment princess because there was not a scratch on it until I got it.
So how did you get your first scratch?
I went on a road that I thought wasn't a dead end, and the alder bushes were growing in wider than the truck could fit. And I got that over with within the first 3 weeks of ownership. Better to get it over with first.
Yeah, exactly. Over in BC, we call that BC pinstriping.
Yes. It's quite bad out here too. The trails out here can get quite overgrown.
Yeah, I've seen that from some of Ryan's videos and some of your stuff. So that sounds like a great little rig. What color is it?
It's black. The worst color for scratches.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After Mike's Stare, I swore I'd never buy another black vehicle.
It's funny because this is the third black vehicle I've had now. Apparently I did learn my lesson.
You like the color.
I'm just gonna say that.
What does TRD Pro stand for? I've always wondered that and never asked the question because I know I have a few friends who have 4Runners and never asked.
Yeah, so I believe TRD stands for Toyota Racing Development. I believe it's their division that focuses on off-road and racing and all the performance section of Toyota.
Okay.
Yeah, they've got a few different versions. There's TRD, then there's like TRD off-road and a few different options. The TRD off-roads have the locker and stuff like that. Does yours have the locker in the back?
Yes, it has the rear locker in the back.
Yeah.
It's been helpful.
So now you can go hang with Ryan in the wintertime.
Yes, maybe, depending where he's going. I've seen his videos. I don't know if I want to bring my daily driver to some of the spots he's going.
Yeah. We're talking about Ryan Marks from Hub City Overlanding, who was a guest on, probably about a year ago now. And it's actually Zach that recommended him. And Ryan does really good videos on Hub City Overlanding on YouTube. And he's been into some pretty hairy spots in the wintertime with his Tacomas. So definitely worth checking out for sure.
Yeah, definitely go subscribe and watch for a future video where we're doing Cape Spencer so you can get a good idea of just how crazy that trail is.
And thinking of the fact while you're watching it that you brought a Tucson in there.
Yes, that too. Because when you look at my truck, it is huge. And the Tucson was nowhere close to that. It's like a small UTV in comparison.
That's impressive, though. That's impressive. Hey, you never know. You never know. Let's do it.
Yeah.
A lot of these crossover vehicles, like your Subarus and that, are quite impressive. We've had Canadian Battle Wagon on. We've talked about his Subaru, as well as some of the guys in Alberta. And these little crossover vehicles are actually not too bad. They're a lot more capable than a lot of people think they are. And I think it actually makes you a better driver. And before hopping into something that's fully modded, that's obviously a huge different vehicle. But I think you walk into it with some better skills than, say, somebody that's been driving a Jeep or something all their lives.
Definitely. It's so true that crossovers are way more capable than people believe, especially when you put a good set of tires on it, like a KO2 like I had on mine. As soon as I put that on that Tucson, it changed it. Like, it could go anywhere. And the other part of crossover too is learning when you just have to mash the throttle to get through something.
And they have a lot better fuel mileage than Toyotas and Jeeps.
That's cute. No, it wasn't much better. No. I had a small engine in the Tucson. It was just a 2-liter. And when you pile that much weight onto a 2-liter, it doesn't like it very much.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. You mentioned a rooftop tent. What are you running for a rooftop tent on your 4Runner?
So, funny story. I was running it's called a Silverwing tent, and it was a U.S. Costco brand. I've never seen another one like it before. However, today I just had a pallet arrive in my driveway with my new Go Overland Summit. And that's been an ordeal. Vito's been great to work with. Love the product, love Vito, but the shipping company really dropped the ball. Yeah,
that happens unfortunately sometimes.
Yeah, it was a week late, and when I looked at the box, somebody rammed the forklift through it.
Is it okay?
Yeah, it's okay though. We got it put on the truck tonight, and I was. If this podcast wasn't happening tonight, I would be probably sleeping in it tonight.
We appreciate you taking the time to spend with us instead of sleeping in your brand new rooftop tent.
Yeah.
I could wait a few more days.
A big shout out to Vito from Go Overland Canada. We've had him on the show as well, and he's been a big supporter of the overland community in Canada. And everything I've heard has been really great. So another big shout out to Vito as well.
Yeah, and that was the big reason I went with it. Is everybody I know that has his tent just says that he's a stand-up guy, and he makes a great product. And I'm quite excited to rep his product.
That's great. So what kind of trails are out in the East Coast? The East Coast is absolutely beautiful, and I think you've got a mixture of trails going on, right? You could be sitting on the beach on the ocean, or you're inland and tight, narrow trails and stuff like that. So what are the trails in your area?
Yeah, so the topography here is great, actually. So where I am in St. John, it's a lot of mix. Within 10 minutes, I can be out of the city. I can be on anything from a logging road. I could be on an ATV trail. Cape Spencer's 10 minutes from my house, and that's tight, narrow trails. I could take ferry across the Bay of Fundy and be in Nova Scotia on a beach there. It's incredible, the amount of diversity as far as trails and landscapes here.
What do you prefer?
Oh, I like a little bit of both, but at the end of the day, it's all about the campsite.
Yeah.
It's all about finding a nice spot to set up camp and have a nice fire. And
we all have this thing in our head of the East Coast and all these big beaches and stuff like that. Do you find a lot of your time you end up on the beach, or a lot of your stuff inland?
That's a good question. Honestly, I think it's probably a good mix. I'd say it's a good mix. I find there's a lot more accessible inland. I find a lot of the stuff that is on beaches is quite well known, and because of that, it's quite overrun. Yeah. A lot of the time, we have a lot better luck getting stuff that's inland versus on a nice beach.
Yeah, totally makes sense. Now, here's a totally random question that just popped in my head, but do you guys have a lot of the same animals that we do, say, in central Canada or on the West Coast? And I'm thinking of, say, loons and things like that.
Yes, we actually do have loons out here.
Okay.
And
I know it might seem like a stupid question, but...
No, it's not a stupid question at all. No, because
I know you guys have bears and...
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
Yeah,
go
even
ahead.
the species of bears between the West Coast and the East Coast is quite different. West Coast, you got grizzly bears, and here we have black bears. And there's a huge difference between grizzlies and black bears, obviously. Black bears
Yeah.
are quite skittish. Meanwhile, grizzly bear, you don't want to be anywhere near that.
Yeah, we have browns and blacks as well as the grizzlies. But yeah, you get a grizzly, that's the size of your Tucson. A little bit of a different story. But yeah, as I was wondering, yeah, you mentioned like you guys do have loons, and I imagine we have a lot of the same animals. It's just I wasn't sure.
Yeah,
and I'm
we
sure
have
you
a
have
lot
a lot
of
of different
moose.
animals too.
Yes, we have a lot of moose around here, as well as deer, and I'm blanket, but I would say we share a lot of the same animals, but we probably have quite a lot of unique animals here too.
Mhm.
One that just popped in my head is the sandpiper. It's just a small little bird, but they come to East Coast beaches and they mate, I believe. Don't quote me on that. I'm not a biologist. But,
I have heard about them over there. Yeah,
Mhm.
once you mentioned it. So
The beaches there. You guys have black sand beaches, right?
yes, so there is actually not even 15 minutes from my house. There is a beach. It's called Black Beach, and it's a black sand beach. It's quite incredible. And it's the only one I know of around here. But it is true. We do have a black sand beach down here.
cool.
That's cool. It's so different. See, yeah. Canada's nice. Canada's beautiful. We can get like such different ranges of stuff here. That's
It's so incredible.
yeah.
Sorry. Speaking of your travels, you're going out with Ryan and you're going out with some of the other guys. And something that comes up on our show quite often is food. Are you guys
Yes.
foodies, or you guys just grab a smoky and a beer and sit by the fire?
I enjoy cooking. I enjoy cooking when I'm out in the woods. I find most of the time during the week, I get home from work and I'm burnt out and
Yeah.
I just want to eat crap. So when I'm relaxed in the woods or on a beach, I like to try and make something a little nicer sometimes. I'm not a professional chef, but I try. I try to make some nicer meals while I'm out
Yeah.
camping.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like I say, you get home from work and you just don't feel like doing anything, and you do what you have to kind of idea. But when you have time to sit out there and in the nature and you have time to cook properly, that's what I'm finding with a lot of overlanding people is that a lot of them do go bigger on their meals on when out camping, right? We've talked about Dwayne from Just Chipping Adventures. He's got a lot of great food in his camping arsenal. And we were at an event actually with Ryan that we're talking to last week from Adventure Dog Overland. And on that episode, we're talking about the food at this one event that I attended with Ryan. And it was probably about 15 Instagrammers and YouTuber overlander people. And they're all cooking meals. Dwayne brought a smoker, right? Who the hell brings a smoker camping with them? But I find it really interesting how many overlanding people are into the cooking side.
Yes. So it actually reminded me of a story. So Hub City Overlanding, we host a yearly event called Thanksgiving in the Woods. And we try to do a potluck at this event. And the stuff that comes out is quite wild. We always have way too much food. But I like to do a little chili on the campfire and in my cast iron Dutch oven.
Nice.
And we've had people bring out pies and slow cooked chilies and pulled pork. And even this year, we got guys talking about deep frying a turkey and bringing
Yeah.
smokers as well. It's incredible the effort people put into making a good meal.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think a lot of it is just to relax and be able to do it outside and enjoying it with friends and all that, right? As well as showing off a little bit too. We all want to show off a little bit. So when you're sitting around the campfire, what are you drinking?
It's changed over the years. I used to love craft beer, but I'm taking a sober year this year. So I've been enjoying some non-alcoholic beers this year.
Good for
Okay.
you.
Yeah.
I used to love craft beer, and I'm getting away from it a bit. I find that it's getting so extreme on some of their flavors and stuff like that I just want a nice Pilsner or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Some of them are just so extreme. So I noticed you're drinking there tonight, Trisha. What do you got?
I have iced tea, but Arizona hard iced tea.
Oh, okay, there you go. We mentioned Hub City Overland. And
Yes.
maybe if you can fill us in a little bit about that organization or that group of people.
Yes. So Hub City Overlanding is a community of like-minded overlanders. And we work together to help each other out, whether it's connecting together to share camping spots or to help each other with vehicles or ideas and community events as well. Like this year, we hosted an event called Wild Yodas with Media Toyota, where it was basically just a big Toyota car show. And that's the gist of Hub City Overlanding. It's a big community. And in the end, it's about the community. It's not about me or Ryan or any of the guys that help run the show. It's about the community at the end of the day and what's best for the community.
That's what I find a lot with the overlanding community is it really is about the community. And we will finish off that shout out with Hub City Overlanding. You can find it on Facebook. It's a group on Facebook, and I am part of it. I don't post very often, but I do watch, a lot of what you guys are posting. And it seems to be a fun group. But yeah, check them out, Hub City Overlanding on Facebook. And going back to the whole community thing, that's one thing I really noticed with the overlanding community, especially, is that whole sense of community. You take everything from the events like Overland North or BC Overland Rally or all those kinds of fun events to local groups like Hub City Overlanding, and then just even to people talking on Instagram. I've really noticed that I have personally not met, but talked to so many people on Instagram that I never would have dreamed of talking to before, thanks to this whole overlanding community.
I agree. It's the same thing with me. I actually have a really funny story about that if you want to hear it.
Yeah, definitely.
Over the years, I've connected with Adventure Trail Gear. You guys might know them. They're a company that specializes in gear for overlanding. And over the years, chit-chatted with them a bit, and I bought a bag from them for the Tucson back in the day. And one week, I'm browsing Instagram, and I see these ads for this event, obviously called Overland North. And I also see another post about Adventure Trail Gear saying, we're going to be at Overland North. So I reached out to the Nick at Adventure Trail Gear, and I said, hey, what's this Overland North thing all about? I'm seeing these ads for it and curious about it. And he's, come on out and check it out. Here's some day passes. So I'm like, cool. So Friday night after work, I load up the Tucson and drive 1,700 kilometers straight to Overland North and show up there that Saturday for the event. And keep in mind, I had zero plan. I had zero camping ratings. I didn't even know anybody there. I just talked to these random guys called Adventure Trail Gear on Instagram and wanted to see what this whole Overland North thing was about. And walked up to the booth and introduced myself. I was like, hey, I'm Zach. We were talking on Instagram yesterday. And they were like, you were just in New Brunswick yesterday and you're in Toronto today. What the hell?
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, you're like, yep, I'm going, and picked up and go. Wow.
And
17 hours.
And I think that's the spirit of overlanding, is just getting out and doing it, not asking questions. If you ask questions and you're not ready and you claim that you're not ready, you'll never go.
Yeah. Do you find that being on the East Coast that more people are getting into overlanding and camping just because of social media and like meeting people or seeing people on Instagram and Reels and all that?
Yes and no. I have met quite a few people that are getting into it because they've seen people like me and Ryan posting about it and they think it's fun. I don't think it's to the same extent as some of the bigger cities where it's like influencer, but I do think that people are getting into it and doing it because of the social media influence. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm finding that a lot of people are coming into it for a number of different reasons. There's the old 4x4 guys like myself that don't want to sleep on a ground tent anymore because I can't get up in the morning. And then there's people that are getting into this so-called overlanding scene because they've got a couple of mountain bikes and they want to go exploring and they don't want to do the hotels. They want to do a little bit of camping, and the rooftop tents are something that appeal to them for that reason. So I think it's a real wide range of people getting into it for a real wide range of reasons.
Absolutely. And I can say this from experience after doing a long hike or riding mountain bikes or even going out on the canoes for a day. The last thing you want to do is pack up and go to a hotel.
Stay out there and enjoy it.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, we touched on a couple things that I want to circle back to. The first one is Overland North. You hit your first event. Maybe if you can explain to our listeners what Overland North is and your experience with it.
So Overland North is, I'm going to quote the folks at Overland North here. It's an overland festival, and it's basically a bunch of people getting together and they camp for a weekend in a nice, sometimes remote spot. Sometimes it's on a runway in Deerhurst. The last few I've been to have been in the Albion Hills Conservation Area in Toronto, but you get a good mix of people. I remember the second time I was there at the Albion Hills location, I was camped next to a van on one side of me, and on the other side of me, there was a brand new Jeep Grand Wagoneer with a teardrop trailer. You get a great mix of people going to these events, and it's a great way to network. I've made so many contacts going to Overland North. It's incredible.
Yes, it's people definitely want to check it out. Overland North, and it's NTH, sort of a different spelling on it, kind of idea. So messes some people up, but Google the Overland North, and they've also got a very good Facebook group on Facebook as well too. So they talk a lot about Overland more in Ontario and that, but they've got two events each year, and they've changed it up a little bit this year. They just had an event a couple weeks ago, but yeah, they've got another coming up in the fall. Trisha attended her first Overland North event last year. And, and found the same thing. The community side of it was just the overwhelming factor, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was cool to see people that I knew, but also meet a whole bunch of new friends and people on Instagram, and the rigs. And like you said, Zach, like just everyone just has a different setup, and you're just like in awe. You're like, you go to one person, you talk to them for another half an hour, then you go to another person, you talk to them for half an hour, because everyone just wants to show you what they've done and what they've created and what they're running, and it's really cool. And vehicles that I've never even seen before. I remember I seen a few Land Rovers there, and the older Land Rovers, and there was a few vans. Like, I don't know how to explain the vans, but they're huge, but they've turned them into where they can full range, like kitchen and sleeping in there, and they're in the back lot. So it's cool. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I certainly agree that everybody there wants to show off their rig. That's for sure. They want to talk to you. They want to learn about who you are, where you come from, and what brought you to Overland North. And it's a pretty cool aspect of it. It's just the amount of people you get to meet and the stories you hear, and even enjoying a few beers with some people around a campfire, whether you're in the quiet area or whether you're up in the zoo.
In the zoo. The zoo. I loved it. It was so much fun.
So let's give another shout out to another organization or another group of people you've been working with, or friends that you're friends with, Adventure Trail Gear. What are they all about?
Oh, I don't know how you guys haven't had them on the show yet. You got to get them on. But they're a company that, like I said, they make high quality gear for Overland. They really started out with the tailgate tire bags and branched out from there, and now they're making like recovery bags for your recovery gear or duffel bags. I even have a little storage cube that I use for a tire repair kit, but it's a great quality product. I think the one on my Forerunner now, I've had it for a year. I recently changed from the beige to a custom red and black one. And I think most reds you see on anything fade when they're in the sunlight. The red on my Forerunner's Adventure Trail Gear bags has not faded, and it lives outside. So it's an incredible product. It's built to last, even when it lives outside. And all made in Canada. Actually made in Fredericton, New Brunswick, too. So it's East Coast product.
Yeah, I've heard lots of really good things about them. You're right. We've got to get them on the show for sure.
I'm actually going up to see them this weekend, so I'll pester them a little bit, too.
Yeah. Excellent idea.
Juno. Let's talk about Juno, the dog.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So is he your co-pilot when you're wheeling and overlanding? Tell him about it.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Juno is a rescue, actually. I got him in 2019, I believe. So he's been around my life for 5 years. From what I know, he is a Border Collie Lab mix. So
Okay.
he is too smart for his own good. The last 2 vehicles I've had, he's learned how to open the rear window so he can stick his head out.
No way.
Yeah. Thankfully, the new one has window locks, so I can prevent that from happening. But, yeah. But Juno loves getting out and overlanding and adventuring and camping too. If I don't take him, he gets mad. When I'm packing the truck, he will dart out the door, go sit in the truck, and he will sit there and wait to go and will not leave the truck until we go because he does not want to get left behind.
Aww.
But I'm very much one of those people that if my dog can't go, then neither will I. So I try my best to include him in everything I do. Every weekend we go out camping, he comes with me. He sleeps up on the rooftop tent with me. Absolutely loves that. Overland North, we at the front, the Deerhurst event, we bought a longboard and we longboarded the length of the runway together. And just last weekend, we ventured onto the water together in a canoe.
Oh, wow. Cool.
And I'm actually amazed that we didn't slip. We didn't slip. He actually did a lot better than I was expecting. We'll be doing a lot more of that this year. Yes, he loves to swim.
Yeah.
He's a little bit of a timid swimmer, but I've been working with him to help that.
Yeah.
But he does love the water.
Last week we were talking with Ryan from Adventure Dog Overland, and we talked about the goggles he has for his dog Barrett. And I see that you've got goggles for Juno as well.
Yes, and I believe they're actually the same brand, Rex Specs. And
yep, that's what he said too. Yeah.
Yes. So they were actually a Christmas gift from my mom to Juno last winter, I believe. Maybe it could be 2 winters ago. She bought them for him for Christmas, and they're interesting. That's for sure. He looks very cute in them, but he actually he does like them. But I find it's easier to keep them on in the winter. In the summer, I find they get a little hot on his face. But a lot of the time in the winter, he will be wearing them when we're adventuring.
Cute.
How did they come up with the name Juno?
It's actually a really good story. So when I adopted him, it was the 75th anniversary of the D-Day landings in Normandy. So I named them after Juno Beach. And it's a symbolic thing where my family is military. And I just thought it was a cute name and it was fitting for that anniversary. And it's certainly a name that's stuck, that's for sure.
That's perfect. I love that.
So what are your plans for the summer? We're getting into end of June here. So when this comes out, it'll be the first week of July. So you have July and August left. And what do you got going on?
I'm already looking at my August schedule and realizing that I don't have enough time for anything that I want to do. So it seems like my summer is already filled up real quick. But yeah, I'm going to be all over the province doing various things. Nothing set in stone yet. Talked about coming to Overland North this year too. I'm not sure if it's going to be in the budget or not this year because I really want to do Newfoundland next year. I want to make that happen. I got to get to that last province I've never been to. It's right there. It's haunting me every year, and I just got to do it. I got to make it happen, and it's going to be an expensive trip, but I got to make it happen.
That was actually one of the questions we were going to ask is if you could go anywhere in Canada, where would you go? And I think you basically just answered that question.
That and the rest of Canada too. If I had an unlimited gas card, I would be doing a road trip across Canada and visiting every remote and unknown spot across this country because there's just so much beauty across this country that we don't realize.
Yeah.
Canada is 10 million square kilometers and only then 80% of it is uninhabited. So there's so much area to explore.
And I don't remember the exact numbers on it, but I was at a meeting a while ago and they said it was something to the effect of in British Columbia itself, there's 900,000 kilometers of Forest Service roads.
I believe it.
It blew my mind. It was just absolutely nuts. And I might be off a little bit on that number. It might be 700 or something like that, but just in the province of BC. So never mind the rest of Canada.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get people like Trisha that go to 16 other countries before she hits her own country.
I know, it's true. Hey, I went like the northern part of Ontario. I think it was Thunder Bay. And that's almost 24 hours just to get to the northern part of Ontario alone. So I'm like, okay,
people don't realize how big Ontario is.
Yeah.
You could go to Europe. You could drive 6 hours and be in 6 different countries. You could drive 6 hours across Ontario. You're still in Ontario.
You're still there.
You can drive 6 hours across Toronto and you're still in Toronto.
You're still in Toronto.
Because you're on the 401. The rush hour.
Yeah. Ontario is a huge province, definitely bigger than BC. Once you get up north, there's just so much available up there, right? So I spent a little bit of time up there, but not a heck of a lot. Do you find there's a lot of remote places left on the East Coast, or is this getting more and more populated?
I find on the southern side of New Brunswick, it is getting very populated, especially Moncton. Like Moncton's exploding in population. Even St. John, to some extent, is growing as well, but not like Moncton. But Moncton and that area along the Acadian Peninsula is exploding in population. But if you go up to northern New Brunswick, like Mount Carlton, it's still very remote and desolate. And somebody once told me about Mount Carlton that Mount Carlton is so remote that people come out of Mount Carlton to hunt.
What do you love about living on the East Coast?
Oh, there's so much to love about it here. I find it's the people. It's just the people are so down to earth and friendly, and you got that small town feel, even though you're in a bigger city. And I think that's what I love about the East Coast. So,
how do you understand Newfies?
I haven't run into too many Newfies, I will admit. But I guess we'll find out when I go to Newfoundland.
Newfoundland, yeah.
That's one thing we were talking the other day with Subash from Grey Wolf Overland a couple of weeks ago. And he grew up in India, and we're talking about the different dialects across India. And there's something like 30 or 40 different languages within the main language in India. And it's the same thing as, say, a southern accent versus a northern accent in the States. And Canada is just such a mixed mash of people that we've got so many different accents going on, right from the Newfie accents to your Quebec accents to everything. It's quite interesting. We all have our own dialects as well.
Yes. So, funny story. I actually grew up in the Ottawa Valley in Ontario, and the Ottawa Valley has a bit of a dialect as well. And I find every time I go home, I start to get that dialect back and start to talk in that tongue.
Yeah, there's a bit of French in there, but it's not French. Like, it's a different mixture there, right? So,
yeah. And then out on the East Coast, we have this beautiful thing called Chiac, which is a mixture of French and English.
It's such a very crunchy that way too. Like, it's just incredible, right? I know we've touched base on a few people, but is there anybody you wanted to give a shout out to, that whether it be some of your friends or some of the companies that you're working with?
Yeah, so I definitely want to give a shout out to who I call my two stowaways in the truck, my roommate Christian and his girlfriend Laura. They come out camping with me pretty much every weekend, and they stow away in the back of the 4Runner, and they've been great company to have along the way, that's for sure. And Christian, I call him my mobile mechanic. Most people have a toolkit in their truck. I have Christian. So he's been my guy that I go to whenever I got something wrong, or if I think something's wrong. He's pretty good to fix that up for me, or help me fix it, at least.
It's always good to have friends with mechanical aptitude, right? So
yeah, I have too many friends with mechanical aptitude. That's my problem. It could be dangerous in numbers.
In the pocketbook, right?
In the pocketbook, but the stuff you start to dream up when you got 6 or 7 mechanics in a circle.
Yeah, I hear you on that one for sure.
So the last question we ask all our guests is, what Canadian would you like to listen to on the 4x4 Canada podcast?
Yes, so I put together a list, and I tried to come up with the dream team of East Coasters that would be nice to have on here. So the first one, obviously, Adventure Trail Gear. I mentioned that many times. Get them on the show. They need to be on the show. The next one is Maritimer ATV. So he's a guy out of Moncton, and he does overland camping on his ATV. And he brings his dog Wendell with him everywhere too. And he's got a little basket on the front of his bike he's made for Wendell. And he travels in that basket when they're four-wheeling together. It's quite cute. So I definitely recommend having him on. I think he would be an interesting guest. The next one, and I'm surprised Ryan didn't mention this one, Jeep Nuts. Jeep Nuts it's a global organization, but it was founded here in New Brunswick by a man named Jacques Arsenault. So I feel like if you can reach out to Jacques, he would probably be an interesting guy to talk to about the Jeep Nuts. And then the last one, not really an East Coaster, but somebody I know from back in Ontario, Adventures Unexpected, formerly known as BK Overland Adventures. Brett and Cass, I met them at Overland North first time I was there. They were quite fascinated by the Tucson when I had it there, and we connected. And I've been down for one of their events. I did it over a weekend because I'm crazy. But last year they took a Gladiator and they took a 10-week trip across the states. And this year they built a F-350 up, and I think they are planning a trip to Alaska. So I feel like they would be a good guest to have on to chat about some of their trips. I'm sure they have so many stories to tell.
All great suggestions. Adventure Trail Gear, we've already mentioned that. And Maritimer ATV, somebody else mentioned that as well, too. And
it might have been me.
It might have been. Very well might have been, for sure. Yeah, no, definitely great suggestions. And we'll get a hold of them for sure. Because everybody has a story. Even if we don't think we have a story, everybody has a story. That's the one thing that we've really learned with this podcast is it's funny. Some people may not want to talk, or they're like, I don't know. And then you get them on and they become these wonderful storytellers that everybody has a situation they've been in and that's led them to where they are now in their life.
Yeah, I certainly agree. And it's fascinating to hear each and every story that people have to tell.
Yeah. And different genres too. We do a lot of overlanding stuff, but we've got the off-road racing guys and gals as well. So
ATV would be fun to talk to. Yeah. Something different.
Definitely. One thing I do want to mention before we do leave here tonight, Zach, is that this is going to be old news when the podcast comes out, but this weekend we recently learned about the passing of Alison Parliament. And I don't know if you have heard about Alison, but she's actually the one that started the Jeep Duck craze. She's based out of Ottawa there. And she recently passed away very suddenly this weekend. So our hearts go out to the Parliament family and the whole Jeep community as well itself. It's been something that has brought the Jeep community together. And some people are anti-Jeep Duckers and some people are over-achiever Jeep Duckers. But there's no denying that it has brought the whole Jeep community together. So
I agree.
Thoughts and prayers are go with her family.
It's certainly a fun little way to bring a community together. And I think at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's bringing the community together.
Yeah. And we did have Alison on the show with us. And if you want to go back and listen to her, that podcast, you can definitely go back and learn the history of her movement and what she started within the Jeep community here in Ontario and Ottawa and all over the States, and basically different countries around the world she hit. And like you said, Wes, people are non-duckers or duckers, and meeting her at other events and talking to her was a cool insight on that whole movement. Thanks for mentioning that. And shout out to everyone who loved her and the community and the people who she touched. And I believe she was working on a Alison Duck custom. So that would be pretty cool. I believe the company is bringing that out soon for pre-order, so people can actually order that just for the memoriam. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
I was going to say, it's certainly an amazing story, and it really shows that one person can truly make a difference, no matter what you think.
Yeah.
100%. That's amazing what one person can do. I'm going to flip around for some good news. I want to give a shout out to our listeners in the Philippines. As of the last month or so, we have been bouncing around on the Apple or iTunes charts at anywhere between the number 10 to the number 15 most downloaded automotive podcast in the Philippines. So we're pulling in some big numbers there. And I want to thank all the Philippine listeners for listening. And it's been a neat surprise. And you never know, we might have to get some Filipinos on the show and go from there. So big thank you to everybody listening in the Philippines and, all their listeners in general. That it's really neat when we see a spike of listens in another country. And shout out to Germany as well, too. Germany is a very popular one for us. It's actually our third most popular country besides Canada and the United States. We find that quite interesting. But yeah, thank you to all our listeners. And Tricia, we wouldn't keep doing this if we didn't hear from you guys and the feedback and stuff like that. And it is a lot of work, but we enjoy it. And
we enjoy it. We have fun.
Exactly. You have to have fun, Zach. I'm sure you wouldn't be doing your Instagram channel without it.
Yeah. And I think that's the most important thing is you got to have fun with it, because the moment it doesn't become fun, it becomes work.
I actually had a recent job offer. They've been pushing me to go back into the 4x4 industry. And I'm like, oh man, I end up talking 4x4 all day and then talking 4x4 in the evenings and around the campfires and stuff like that. And I'm just like, that's just too much. I've been there before and it just wears you out. And by the end of the day, you don't feel like talking about the stuff that you love on the weekends or whatever. You got to still enjoy it. So,
yeah. Sometimes it's nice to keep your job and your hobby separate so that your hobby can be your relaxation and your job can be your job.
Exactly. So once again, we're talking to Zach from the Lost Spike. His Instagram channel is _lost_spike. And talk about living on the East Coast and the Maritimes. And really enjoyed having you on tonight, Zach. It's nice talking to different people from all over the country. And and like I mentioned, Trish hasn't been over there. I've spent a little bit of time there, but definitely an area I want to go back to for sure.
We'd love to have you both, that's for sure.
Maybe we'll figure something out. So you bet. Yeah. But awesome. Thanks, Zach. I know it's really late over there, so I really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us tonight.
Yes. Thank you.
Not a problem.
It was fun.
Awesome.